So the fourth Sunday in the season of Eastertide is always Good Shepherd Sunday. And in all 3 years of our lectionary, Good Shepherd Sunday has a reading from the Gospel of John. So in order to understand who this Good Shepherd is, we must start at the beginning of John. In the beginning was the Word. And that Word was the Good Shepherd. He came to his own, but his own were lost. Some in ditches of darkness, some in brambles of blindness, some on long roads of loneliness. The Good Shepherd searched and called the sheep, each by name. Peter, John, Thomas, Lazarus, Mary, Martha. Or called them each by name, the woman at the well, the crippled man at the pool, the blind man who was born blind. We don't know their proper name, but they were not anonymous because they were all called by their one true name, Beloved. When the sheep followed the shepherd out of the ditches of darkness, out of the brambles of blindness, out of the long roads of loneliness, they all became disciples. They passed through the gate called belonging, and they learned the way to the Father's flock. Jesus said, I am the gate. I am the Good Shepherd. I am the way, the truth, and the life. In the Gospel of John, disciples are called by Jesus not to perform great acts, but to listen to him, to listen for him. The image is a searching shepherd who's looking for the lost and confused sheep. The shepherd is collecting sheep for this flock called the lost and found, calling each by name. Yoo-hoo! Peter, hello? Mary, hello? Su-ying, Su-ying, Su-ying. They are each called by name, and when the sheep hears, something will become very familiar. A longing will erupt within the sheep. The sheep will notice how lost she's been and how much she desires to be found. Ultimately, the shepherd's goal is not to set the disciples on a project or a job to be done, but to bring disciples into relationship with the shepherd and give them belonging to the flock. This relationship with God produces an abundant life. An abundant life is a life of belonging to God and of belonging to the flock. It is also called, in the Gospel of John, eternal life. A life of eternal belonging in God. One of these sheep was a man born blind, and he was found. He was lost, and he was found. Jesus walked by and found him and put mud on his eyes and gave him sight. Now, the sight was only a beginning. It was a sign of greater sight that would be coming. Not physical sight, but insight, spiritual insight. And this spiritual insight would help him know who the shepherd is. And his destiny is to follow the voice of the shepherd, to listen to him, and to be added to the great flock of the lost and found. The man who was healed of blindness was interrogated multiple times by the religious leaders. You see, the religious leaders could physically see, but they were blind. Not from birth, but by obstinate choice. Their blindness was because they wanted to remain exactly as they were. They didn't need any transformation, thank you very much. They did not see themselves as stupid sheep who needed guiding, who needed someone to lead them out of the dark ditches and the scratchy brambles and the loneliness. They were educated, you see. They were very smart. So they would light upon their own darkness, their own intellect, and they would chase their tail. After one interrogation, the man who was healed from blindness said, "How could Jesus do this thing if he weren't from God?" And the religious leaders took umbrage at this man. "How dare you," they said, "how dare you teach us? We're the smart ones, and you're uneducated. How dare you teach us about who God is? You were born into blindness, and it was obviously because your parents sinned and you sinned." And so their blindness remained. "We are not blind," they said. They would not follow Jesus out of the ditches they dug for themselves, out of their bramble horticulture, out of the loneliness they nursed in their wounds. They kicked the healed man out of the synagogue. "You do not belong," they said. At first, this was painful for the man, but he knew something was going on because Jesus had found him. He was maturing from a lamb to a sheep. And this thing that was a miracle of healing was maturing into a sign. It was pointing not just to healing, but to the deep spiritual belonging that was awaiting for him in Jesus. So he is gaining spiritual insight to who Jesus was. And he would get to know the voice of the shepherd. And he understands that the shepherd had searched him out again and again, first on the road, and then after he was kicked out. He was about to become a part of the flock of the lost and found. The Good Shepherd tells us that his work is not finished, that he has other sheep he must find. He will call them also by their name. And if they are willing, he will take them up into his arms. He will scoop them up. He will speak tenderly to them. And he will add them to the flock of the lost and found. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. And when danger abounds, the shepherd will ward off evil. He will give his life for the sheep, and he will rise up again to be with them. He will always be with them. He will nourish them with belonging. The example of the once blind man is really an example of us. In the Gospel of John, you get disciples with proper names like Peter, Mary, Martha. But you get a lot of disciples that don't have proper names, but are all stand-ins for our journey to listen to the Good Shepherd. You have the woman at the well, who stands in for people who are in conversation, who think they know one thing and is beginning to understand. You have the man who is crippled at the pool, and he is cranky. And he represents that cranky part of us who wants to be healed but has a lot of reasons why it's not going to happen. And we have the man born blind, who is not just an image of us in our blindness, but a stand-in for us as one who needs to be found first, who is powerless to become a sheep without being found, and who must be found again and again. And that discipleship, this belonging, doesn't happen in one day, in one choice, but a lifetime of practice, a lifetime of listening, even when all they hear is silence. So he is a stand-in for us today of the long life of discipleship. But he can also stand in for those times when we have felt we don't belong. Have you ever felt that way? Like you don't belong? Somebody said something cutting, and they meant it to hurt, and you're not supposed to belong? So this belonging that the Good Shepherd is giving to the flock is about how when we walk, we are yielding to this belonging, how not only are we belonging to the flock, but everything about ourselves will belong. All those parts that we may have thought, maybe they're right, this part of me doesn't belong. Well, they weren't right. It belongs because God welcomes all of ourselves. And so we are going to learn in this discipleship how to welcome everything about ourselves. That is the belonging. How do we do this? They asked, the disciples always ask, how do we do this? And Jesus says, abide in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. Abide in me. Stop trying to figure out everything. Abide in me. First, abide in me. And out of that source of that relationship, you will bear fruit. But if you start with the fruit, you will get drained. Abide in me. So let us consider what it means to constantly be connected to this source, this abundance that comes for us, and all we have to do is receive. This is very hard. It is the hardest work of being a disciple, is to just receive. because we would think maybe we can do something before we actually know something about what it means to belong in God. So I think about how when I practice yoga, the instructor always says, you know, a lot of the poses, you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, yeah, I look good. I do that. Oh, yeah, look at that. But she says that the hardest pose is the final resting pose, the Shavasana. The final pose. After all those twists and pretzels, hardest thing, to rest. Abide, rest in me. And you will know what it means to belong. Listen to the one who calls you by your true name. Beloved. Amen.
Amen.